Hello YouTube and welcome to this episode of How It Works. In this episode we'll be looking at how to remove a carburetor, clean it and put it back on. So let's get started. The first step to removing the carburetor is to remove the air filter. So you have one screw over here and another over here. If we remove this, the air filter comes out and you'll have direct access to the carburetor. If you want to open a carburetor from the engine, then there are a few things that you should look. First is the petrol inlet and the outlet pipe. The petrol pipe comes through the fuel pump into this point where it is the inlet. So you have to remove this. And then here you have your petrol outlet. The excess petrol that comes to a carburetor goes back into the fuel tank through this. So you have to remove a pipe here. After you have done that, there is an electric connection to the solenoid here. This solenoid is used when you are trying to start your car. Once the key is turned off, it blocks all the passage of petrol. Once the key is turned on, then it lets the petrol pass in. So you have to remove your connector here. And after that, there is an AC pipe that connects, there is a vacuum pipe that connects here which activates your throttle on turning on your AC. So you have to remove that pipe. Then it is time to remove the accelerator and the choke wires as I am showing you right now. And finally, you'll have 4 studs here which are held with bolts here. So you'll have 4 bolts which you'll have to remove. After you remove that, you can simply take out the carburetor in your hand. After you remove the carburetor, it would be nice to remove all the screws and then clean off all the junk. And if the screws don't open, then pour it in put this carburetor in a vessel, fill it up with used engine oil and soak it there for 1 or 2 days. Once soaked in the old engine oil, it doesn't have to be new. Once soaked in the old engine oil, then these screws become loose and you can remove them. And after you have removed them, then put it in a tub, pour hot water, boiling water into it and add some detergent and put these inside the detergent so that you can remove all the stains of oil and any sort of dirt that gets accumulated into the holes. People also suggest the use of petrol, diesel, and the more popular thing is the brake fluid. But you don't need to have brake fluid, you can do it even with normal hot water, boiling water and detergent combination. Screws, you can remove it into the top part, which is a plate, and then which is the main portion here, and then you have a base plate. So soak all of these in detergent water. Okay, after immersing them in detergent water and keeping them for 2 days with repeated brushing, I finally ended up with something that looks a bit like this. That is, if you can see, every part is crystal clear. There is absolutely no sign of oil anywhere, and yeah, even the deepest of all places which are supposed to be covered with oil, even they are properly washed. This sediment that you see is of the detergent, so if I clean this with water, it will go off. And so if you're on a tight budget, it's always a good idea to open the parts, pour them in water, preferably boiling water. Hot water along with detergent does the job for you. And if you have a bit of more money and a bigger budget, then you can do it like this. That is, here what I have done is I've immersed one part in the brake fluid. So let's see how that has turned out. As you can see, this has straightforward, this has more luster, more brightness to it, and everything works. It's almost the same. So if you are in a bigger budget then and you want it to look spotlessly clean, then brake fluid is the way to go. Although it doesn't remove much of your dirt anyhow. You can see it here. See, look at how much dirt you still have accumulated on various parts. If your secondary valve does not open, then you have to remove the mechanism of the primary valve so that it opens freely like this, and then you have to check whether the secondary valve opens or not. Even if you try, if it is not opening, then you have to put it on a stove and heat it so that it becomes loose. As you keep on heating on the stove, then it's a good idea to start twisting it up and down so until it becomes so loose that you can do it simply. Okay, once you've finished all the cleaning and you've started assembly, you got all your carburetor packing so that you're putting it back on, then there is one important test that you can do. You see, the petrol comes in through here and it falls down in here. Okay, once the float area is filled, then the float starts blocking it, and so there is a small exit here made of copper from where it should go out. Okay, that is, this is the float, and here comes all the petrol. When it is full, then the float stops the coming, and so it will go bypass through it and it will go back into the petrol tank. So you have to check if there is a leak. Close this with your finger and push this up so that it is blocked, and try blowing air into the intake. As you can hear, there was no leakage, that is, there was no air going if I blocked this and this, and so it's working fine. Even if after you close this and push the float up, there is still some leakage of air, then that means that you have to look here into the float pin where there may be a leakage, so you have to replace your float pin. Okay, when you're trying to reassemble the carburetor, it's also important to check the fuel return line. As I've shown you that the petrol enters into the float, and once the float says that it's enough, then it goes through this hole and comes out through this outlet here, and it goes back to the fuel tank. So you have to blow air in through here and see if air comes out through here. If that is not the case, then you'll have to open your accelerator pump and clean all the connections and put them back on. So I'm blowing air through here. I'll see if it comes out through here. So this is working well, and on that note, you'll have a small ball and a small piston type that comes from your carburetor. It falls down during the cleaning. These go into this hole here. To identify the hole into which they go, you'll have your accelerator pump, and you'll be pumping it like this. If you pump like this, you'll feel a small draft of air through one of the holes, and that hole houses first the ball. The ball goes in first, and then goes in the cylinder. Okay, after you finished all the checklists, that is, you have checked whether the petrol is coming in, the petrol is going out, whether the float is working properly or not, you have put all the balls, you have seen the accelerator pump working. Now it's time to assemble it back. So first you'll take the base plate, and on top of the base plate you'll put the packing that looks like this. You have to put it in this direction, and then put your white plate that you have, and on that you have to put this packing. You don't need to put any sort of gum to put this packing on, but you have to make sure that all the holes have aligned or not. Okay, and there's also one more thing that you might notice, that is, in some cases there are some holes provisioned here and here and here, but there are no holes in the actual packing itself. This is because of the universal nature of the carburetor and the carburetor packing. You can use a Zen carburetor packing to do an steam, you can use a Maruti 800 carburetor packing, and so they are interchangeable. So don't be worried, don't be frightened if you don't find any holes. Just finish the packing. And then after you have done that, you'll have to match the hole sizes and put it on top of one another. So I have matched all the holes, and now I am attaching the base plate to my main portion. After you join them together, it's time to put back these two screws on, so that the base plate will attach to the main portion. And after that is done, put the carburetor packing that is to be put on the top, and match the holes correctly, that's important. And then it's time to put the top portion in. Okay, so after you put this plate, put all the screws back on. That is, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 screws, and the longer one goes here right behind the solenoid. Rest of them all are uniform. And